90% of all the forests in the world have already been cut down. In the United States of America, less than 5% of the original natural forests are still standing. Clear cutting of forests destroys the natural habitat of flora and fauna, and of indigenous people. It causes soil to erode and creates desert. As the global demand for timber steadily grows, deforestation is threatening an ecological catastrophe. Each year, mankind processes more than 1 billion tons of wood for industry. 50% of these trees are used in the construction industry. And 25% of the wood and wood chips are used in paper making. There is, however, a fast-growing crop with the potential to be an ecological alternative to wood, which can be used as a raw material for paper and construction, as well as for a variety of other uses. This unique plant is marijuana, scientifically known as cannabis and more commonly called hemp. Hemp has been cultivated for thousands of years by mankind because of its incredible diversity of applications. A major use of this plant is in paper production. But it's also possible to build entire houses with material made only from hemp. Hemp is the base for many textiles that are found in shoes, pullovers, and high-quality jeans. Worldwide, almost all ropes and twines are made of this fiber. The seeds can be used in whole foods, noodles, and cooking oil, and even beer is brewed from the leaves. Biodegradable washing powder and furniture polish and a whole range of cosmetic products are also made from the seeds of this plant. In addition to its industrial use, marijuana can also be consumed as a narcotic stimulant. Its potential as a drug has meant that the planting of cannabis has been prohibited in most countries for much of the 20th century. In this way, the plant marijuana became discredited, putting a restraint on its industrial uses. Marijuana became synonymous with drug taking, and the industrial benefits of hemp fell into oblivion. The active ingredient in cannabis as a drug is THC, or tetrahydrocannabinol. Cannabis indica used in rolling joints requires a level of 5 to 12% for any noticeable narcotic effect. But only some varieties of hemp have the potential for drug use. In the 1990s, European agricultural scientists cultivated new varieties of industrial hemp. This cannabis sativa contains a maximum of only 0.3% of THC, making it completely unsuitable for drug use. A virtual boom in hemp research and products was started throughout Europe. Within the framework of an EU research programme, the Agricultural Research Centre, CPRO, in Wageningen in Holland, is cultivating new varieties for different geographic and climatic conditions. Since 1995, Dr. Hans Marvin has led the research for new strands of fibre or seed-producing hemps.
Hemp is very good for the soil. It opens the soil because it grows very fast. On average, in good condition, it grows every week 50 centimeters, that much per week. That means it outgrows the weeds, so you don't need any weeds. Fertilization is also very low. Only about 150 kilograms per hectare is needed, which is very low compared to other crops. So, and it is also not very sensitive to diseases which are found in other crops.
Dr. Marvin confirms the fact that all the drug-related problems of hemp are now obsolete. In his biochemistry laboratory, he analyzes the narcotic content in the respective hemp varieties. He verifies that the new strains of cannabis are suitable exclusively for industrial use. The computer screen shows the percentage of THC in hemp varieties. The pink curve shows the level of THC in a drug containing hemp, compared to new industrial strains.
As you can see, there's hardly any peat there, which means that there's less than 0.02% of THC present in that variety. So practically nothing, no drug or no THC is present in that variety.
Brussels, the headquarters of the European Union. In 1996, the EU lifted the prohibition on hemp, and the Ministry of Agriculture even subsidized hemp growing by about $800 per hectare. Since from the very beginning we've only allowed the cultivation of these strains of hemp, which can't develop any real percentage of narcotics, we avoid the inherent risks. In recent years, we have experienced a sheer explosion of hemp plantation. The acreage nearly doubles every year, and at the moment we have about 40,000 hectares within the European Union. We consider hemp to be an alternative because these fibrous plants are important to various markets and industries. And I think it's the right and positive way to use fast-growing, renewable raw materials.
Nachwachsende Rohstoffe für solche Dinge einzusetzen, ein sehr richtiger und positiver ist.
In 1996, the Neusiedler paper factory in Austria started production of their Hemptec paper. Because of its superior quality, it is still more expensive than conventional paper. But hemp paper has several advantages over wood-based paper, including its strength and durability. Less than 1% of the total paper production by Neusiedler is made from hemp at the moment. But the demand, as well as the production of Hemptec, is increasing tenfold this year from 100 to 1,000 tons, as it is especially suitable as a high-tech paper for most modern colour printers. Hemptec is a very new brand, but hemp paper itself has a long tradition. In the library of this Catholic monastery at Klosterneuburg in Austria, all these beautiful old books are made of hemp. The very first book printed, the Gutenberg Bible, was on hemp-based paper. Despite the passing of so much time, the high quality of these pages is still very apparent. Professor Röhrig admires the quality of hemp books. When book production was growing so rapidly in the Middle Ages, printers used paper made from hemp cloth and hemp, which came from China. The advantage of this paper is its durability and its retention of colors. In contrast, the wood pulp paper used since the 1830s is brittle, becomes discolored, and doesn't last very long. Wood-paste paper crumbles and yellows after a few years, a phenomenon we all know from old newspapers. Since 1922, this wood-based paper, for instance, has not been used extensively in the library. However, it's in a poor condition compared to the much older book on hemp paper from 1760. Since the 19th century, hemp supply hasn't been able to meet the hugely growing demand for paper production. And until now, wood-based pulp has become the main raw material for paper. And even today, paper manufacturing is one of the fastest growing industries. In industrialized nations, more than 200 kilograms of paper per capita are used each year. Each year, 250 million tons of industrial or roundwood are processed for paper production. Wood is cheap and seemed to be in plentiful supply forever. But now we know this was a fatal misapprehension. We have failed to take into consideration the ecological costs of the large-scale use of timber. Currently, already 60% of our global forests have been cut down, like here in the American state of Oregon. The short-sighted policy of most countries still imposes only slight restrictions on clear cutting, with just an eye on quick profits that can be made from timber sales. Within the past 40 years, global consumption has tripled. As the threat large-scale deforestation was having on our environment became apparent, more and more people started to fight for the survival of the remaining forests. To date, environmentalists have founded more than 400 non-governmental organizations to protect forests in the United States. Tim Hermack is the spokesman for the most active, the Native Forest Council.
The biggest filter, the biggest purifier we have for the pollutants that we put into the air are the forests, the trees. 4/5, 80% of the water in the United States, the fresh water, comes originally from forested areas. Many of those forests are gone. We're now taking water from the aquifers underground. 70% are now gone. These forests act as a carbon sink. They take carbon dioxide out of the air and they store it as carbon in the tree for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We're cutting them down, and within years or decades, that carbon is then released back into the atmosphere. We're seeing incredible diminishment of the ozone layer. This too is attributable to the fact that we now have 60% of the world's forests are gone. Half of the trees cut in the United States get made into paper products. 100 years ago in the United States, 100% of the paper used in this country was made from hemp. All of it was made from hemp. No paper was made from wood. It was idiotic to take trees that live hundreds of years to make something that stays in the consumer stream, in paper instances, for 3 days.
But logging continues. The lumber industry has been Oregon's biggest for 100 years. A good deal of this industrial wood is exported, especially to Europe and Japan. The logs are made into beams, boards and composite shells. But lumber is not just the raw material in paper and furniture production. The housing industry is the largest consumer of industrial roundwood on Earth. Each year, some 900 million cubic meters of lumber are used by the construction industry worldwide. Timber is used for virtually all applications in house building. It is processed into panels and composite chipboards, frameworks and walls, as well as insulation materials, floors and roofs. In environmental terms, wood as a raw material for all these houses is far too cheap. Several European countries are considering ecology-related taxes, which would both increase the price of timber and toxic materials and give a further boost to ecological building materials. Hemp could be the most important alternative to timber in the construction industry. Canomose is a hemp-based building material which has been developed in France. The herds of the hemp stems are cut and mixed with lime and water into a mortar, which can be easily processed. Canomose dries in the air and can be applied as a plaster or in the construction of walls or entire houses. It can be poured into molds similar to concrete and sets within a couple of hours. It is extremely light, more than 3 times lighter than cement. For the insulation of roofs, it can substitute for glass fibre and wooden panels. The herd of hemp is also applied as stone floors. Canomose floors show a superior elasticity and better thermic insulation compared to wood and concrete. After only a few hours, the moulds for a hemp wall can already be removed. Using various moulds, outdoor and indoor walls can be created with rounded and unusual designs. Ten years ago, Yves Kühn started using hemp for construction instead of lumber.
c'est une possibilité de maçonnerie, une possibilité architecturale qui va...
Canomose is a style of construction and architecture which can contribute in the reduction of the hyper-exploitation of wood.
Parce que c'est respirant.
Because it breathes, it is thermal insulating. It has the same capacities as wood, but is made from a one-year plant which even improves the soil quality.
Cette chènevotte étant le bois de la plante.
These small hemp herds are the woody parts of the hemp stalks between the fibers. They are very rich in silicate. They are like little vegetable tubes, covered in rocky crystals.
C'est des petits tubes végétaux qui sont criblés de cratères, de cristaux de roche. Parce que c'est du silice à l'état cristallin.
They are silicate in a crystalline state.
C'est ça qui permet d'avoir des murs.
And this causes thermal radiation, allowing us to build walls which are effectively thermal regulating. They store heat in the wintertime and give a stable temperature in the summer.
Et des degrés stables pour l'été. C'est cette régulation, elle participe par ce rayonnement de la silice qui est dans la chènevotte.
The most recent application of Canomose is in lightweight construction panels, invented by the French company Ges.m.b.H. They are extremely strong, but as easy to process as wooden panels. Hemp boards are fungicidal and insect resistant. Canomose is even fire resistant, another advantage compared to wooden construction materials. More than 500 hemp houses have been built in France to date. Jean-Yves and his family have been living in a house made of Canomose for 2 years.
Donc j'ai cherché un matériau qui soit...
I've been looking for a construction material that is healthy, that lets the house breathe, and at the same time acts as an insulator. And when I compared prices and quality with my own ability to construct it, I decided on hemp. I found a building company that put up hemp houses at a price that is not more than traditionally constructed houses.
Qui n'est pas supérieur à une maison traditionnelle.
They've obviously developed techniques that allow them to build hemp houses fairly quickly and efficiently. It's not what you would call a luxurious material.
Pas un matériau, je dirais, luxueux. Les murs de chanvre sont à la fois des murs...
Hemp walls are self-insulating, so they don't need any supplementary insulation. The structure of hemp and the way it is processed create this insulation effect.
Même et la manière dont il est mis en œuvre.
Contemporary construction from hemp is the most recent application for cannabis, which only started in the 1990s. But hemp has always been used by mankind for thousands of years in numerous ways. Sails and ropes were all made of hemp, as was the canvas for wagons.
Hemp and canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp.
How could this unique crop fall into such oblivion during our century? In the 1930s, when modern hemp processing machines were developed, hemp became the rival fiber in the US to the cotton and synthetic material industries. Hemp was also a rival fiber to wood for paper production, and newspapers started aggressive campaigns against marijuana. Dozens of anti-marijuana films were launched in a virtual crusade to condemn hemp. They claimed that hemp was the main reason for the decline in moral standards. In cannabis's potential as a drug, the lobbies of the timber and cotton industries found an ideal pretext to force the prohibition not only of the narcotic, but also of the industrial plantation of their competitive fiber. In World War II, there was a profound change in American policy towards hemp. As a fast-growing, multifunctional crop, hemp's potential could not be ignored by the US economy during the most critical time of war, and its solid fibers were used in the production of ropes, uniforms, fuel, and parachutes.
And parachute webbing for our paratroopers. This is provided.
All of a sudden, the US government began distributing hemp growing licenses to farmers and promoting the extensive growth of cannabis.
A modified rice.
Modern harvesting machinery and processing techniques were applied in the hemp industry. This government promotional film of 1942 illustrates how even hemp contributed in some way to America's victory. At the same time, America's enemy Germany was boosting its own production of hemp. In 1940, the German Ministry for Agriculture issued a booklet promoting hemp cultivation. Germany needed hemp even more desperately than the USA during wartime, since the import of American cotton had been interrupted. While the acreage of German hemp plantation had decreased from 21,000 hectares to just 200 hectares, by 1939 it had increased to 16,000 and continued to rise throughout the war. Hemp was the key fiber in uniforms, tents, hammocks, and ropes. The decades since the 1950s, however, have seen the use of hemp fiber fall into oblivion, and marijuana has once again become associated only with its potential as a psychotropic drug. The current rediscovery of cannabis's industrial uses started in the 1980s. Hemp pioneers, such as the author Jack Herer from California, have carried out extensive research into the history of the industrial potential of the fibers and seeds of hemp. Today, Mr. Herer runs a bookstore in Los Angeles where he sells books dealing exclusively in hemp and hemp products. In 1985, he first published his landmark book about the rediscovery of industrial hemp. Since then, it has been translated into numerous languages and has sold over 400,000 copies. Although hemp cultivation has enjoyed a recent comeback in Europe, the planting of cannabis is still prohibited in the United States. Untiringly, Jack Herer continues his fight for the rediscovery of the hemp, both in the USA and around the world.
We're killing ourselves. Well, as far as I'm concerned, we're all on a trek for suicide as a human race. When you outlaw the one plant that can make all the paper without ever cutting down other trees and leave the trees in the ground to suck up the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, you got a way to save the world. And the government's passed laws against this. When a government passes laws that makes life on Earth unhealthier, then the government is the criminal. We don't want to see a world made of plastics and nylons that make everything poison. That all I can leave to my next generation of children is poison foods, poison lands to grow the food on, poisons in the garbage dumps because we can't get rid of the plastics that we made. And we have one plant that solves. It'll make all the paint. It'll paint all the houses. It'll make all the cloth. It will make all the ropes and curtains and drapes. It will make everything you can think of. All the plastics can be made from this one plant. All the fuel to run your cars, to heat your homes. One plant, and that plant is cannabis hemp. It's marijuana.
Two weeks after sowing, the hemp plants are strong and resistant. Farmers can plant the robust seedling out in a high density of up to 160 plants per square meter. Cannabis photosynthesizes very efficiently, and within 100 days of planting, hemp farmers can harvest plants that are over 3 meters tall. In Europe, the supply of hemp raw materials can hardly keep pace with the increasing demand for fibres and seeds from the many companies that have recently started making hemp products. This textile manufacturer in Austria found a market niche when it began designing hemp dresses in 1996. Here, 25 are employed to tailor-make hemp suits and off-the-peg jeans. The strong hemp cloth is still imported from China, where cannabis processing had not been interrupted after the Second World War. The first jeans ever in the 19th century by Levi were made of hemp. Today, step by step, hemp is regaining its rank in the clothing industry. Nowadays, not only robust jeans and working clothes are made of hemp. Boutiques also sell fashionable dresses for an increasing number of ecologically oriented customers. The seeds of cannabis are also a precious raw material. In Kautzen in Austria, a cooperative of hemp farmers is focusing on seed production. From 4 kilograms of seeds, they can produce 1 kilogram of hemp oil. The oil they produce from the seeds is a highly nutritious cooking and salad oil. But the Kautzen hemp oil is also used to make natural lotions, shampoos, soaps and skin creams. Kautzen hemp products has a line of goods that includes hemp beer, hemp nutrition oil and a range of 17 cosmetic care products. According to Martin Steiner, the managing director at Kautzen, this number may well grow.
Hanf ist einfach eine uralte Kulturpflanze und wir
Hemp, as a cultivated plant, is ages old, and we are continually finding that its applications are almost inexhaustible.
Das ist jetzt unser
This is our cooking and salad hemp oil.
das Öl zeichnet sich
It is especially healthy because it's so rich in unsaturated fats.
Fettsäuren an.
This makes it one of the most nutritious oils.
Eines der hochwertigsten Öle. Im Zuge der ganzen
Since there is now a strong trend towards vegetarian food and a healthy cuisine in restaurants, our products are being used in a growing number of dishes.
Bereichen gefragt.
Hemp seeds here are the base for vegetarian hemp burgers, fried in hemp oil. Restaurant diners dress their salads with a tasty hemp salad oil. Their favourite drink is the Kautzen hemp beer, which has a dry and refreshing taste. In brewing hemp beer, the leaves of cannabis are used as a seasoning, similar to hops. And the hemp burgers are quite delicious. Now that hemp has been rediscovered, you may well wonder just how we managed to do without it for so long.